No, we're not waiting on you. Welcome to the Board of Education's July 27th, 2022 quarterly work session. Please stand as we observe a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Owen. Thank you, Ms. Owen. And we do have an elected official joining us tonight. Senator Becky Duncan Massey is here, along with Superintendent Thomas. We're glad to see you back. Yeah. So also, Ms. Deckard had a work commitment tonight, but she looks forward to attending our August meetings next week. The work session will be held on Monday, August 1st at 5 p.m., followed by our regular session on Wednesday, August 3rd at 5 p.m., and both meetings will be held in this boardroom. Board members, do we have any requested changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? So motion by Ms. Horn, a second by Ms. Babb. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we do have a special recognition tonight. Superintendent Thomas and Senator Massey, would you like to, do you have a presentation?
Okay. Thank you all for, here we go, sorry. Thank you for letting me attend to this meeting to honor our former superintendent. Senator Briggs is not well and was not able to come today, so he sends his regards and hates that he couldn't be here. But one of the things that we get to do in the legislature is do special recognition of very, very special people. And, of course, our role in working with Knox County Schools, we've worked with you all closely. I think we have a great relationship between our Knox County delegation and the Knox County Board. And congratulations, John, on being the new superintendent. I haven't had a chance to see you. I think we're together tomorrow night at a Leadership Knoxville event. So anyway, but I do have a proclamation from the Tennessee Senate. And I'm not going to read all the whereases, but I might read. I might read a couple. So, whereas Mr. Thomas has focused on 3 priorities as superintendents: enhancing student achievement, creating a positive culture, and eliminating disparities. Those priorities became the foundation of a new 5-year strategic plan that was adopted by the Board of Education in 2019. It goes on and talks about where he went to the university, the best university in the country, but Then he has devoted his entire professional career in service to education in Knox County, beginning in 1973 as a teacher at Bearden Junior High School. His tenure as superintendent at Knox County Schools has implemented multiple salary increases for teachers, completed construction of Gibbs Middle School and Hardin Valley Middle School, and implemented a one-to-one initiative that provided a laptop computer to every K-12 student. And Mr. Thomas navigated complex issues related to COVID-19 as Tennessee schools cut short the 2019-20 academic year. Superintendent Thomas and Knox County Schools developed a detailed reopening plan for 2021, including extensive health and safety protocols for in-person students and a new online learning program for virtual students. The district reopened in August 2020 and offered the option of in-person instruction or virtual instruction for the entire academic year. Whereas his many professional accomplishments aside, Bob Thomas is most grateful for the love and companionship he shares with his wife, Becky, who is a teacher at Central High School. He is the proud father of son Brandon and his wife Annalise. And throughout his esteemed career, Mr. Thomas has demonstrated the utmost professionalism, ability, and integrity, winning the unbridled respect and admiration of the students, parents, teachers, and school board members of Knox County Schools alike. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 112th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the House of Representatives concurring, that we extend to Bob Thomas our heartfelt wishes for a happy and fulfilling retirement, applaud his dedication to the youth of Tennessee, and wish him much happiness and every continued success in his future endeavors. This is signed by Randy McNally, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the Senate, Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House, Governor Bill Lee, myself, Senator Briggs, Representative Manis, and Representative Lowell Russell. So, congratulations,
thank you.
Thank you for your service.
First, I'd like to say, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone. It's so different being on this side of the table than the other side. So enjoyable, I guess I could say, even though a little bit nervous. And Madam Chair, thank you so much. And I just want to thank Senator Massey and Senator Briggs, the legislature, for this resolution, something I didn't expect. I'm usually on the other end of giving awards, not receiving awards, so it's kind of awkward for me. But thank you so much, and I tell you what, our legislative delegation is the best, and Senator Massey and Senator Briggs and our representatives have just unwavering support for Knox County schools, and also for all the school systems, public school systems across the state of Tennessee. And I just want to thank you for your service and all the legislators for their service. It means so much to us, and I know to our board. So thank you. And it's just been an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to serve. I appreciate so much y'all giving me this opportunity that I've had for the last 5 years. And although we went through some difficult times with COVID and those kinds of things, hey, we made it. So. And I'm just so proud. By the way, the university, I encountered nobody dumb at the university. I wanted to say that. So in all my classes I've taken over there. So, and I just want to brag on our teachers. I know, before the pandemic, we weren't where we wanted to be. We were getting better, making progress, but the pandemic sort of put a stop to everything, and we lost a lot of ground. But I tell you what, our teachers, I read it in the paper, and of course Dr. Riswick texted me too, but just said, hey, this year with our test results, our kids are almost back to pre-pandemic levels. That just tells me that I know we have great teachers. I knew we had great teachers, but that's proof that we have great teachers, that they've worked so hard this past year to get our principals to get our students back to that point where hopefully they're ready to take off and even learn more and do more. And I just want to say across the board, these things that Senator Massey, I had nothing to do with it. All the people I worked with, I had an amazing team. Dr. Riswick on that team, and Renee Kelly, and Carly Harrington, and Ron McPherson, and Russ Oakes on that team. They were just amazing and helped us to do so much. And I just appreciate them and putting up with me because they did and did so very graciously. And I appreciate our executive team that I worked with, which is, I won't go through all the names on our executive team, but just to say there's so many great and wonderful people that work for Knox County Schools, and our community's so fortunate, and I think all of our folks, our teachers, our principals are the greatest. And by the way, Becky, come up here, Becky. Stand with me. You weren't supposed to sit down. Those of you that hadn't met Becky, my wife Becky, and she taught choral music 42 and a half years. With almost 50 years we've been married. So beautiful, lovely, and talented wife, and she's my biggest number one supporter and a motivator for me and my incentive, and just love her to death. And Just this is just so nice. So thank you. Again, I don't know how to do this kind of stuff because I'm not usually on this end of the awards. So, and I want to just our students and our families just to say thank you to them for the opportunity to serve as well. So just God bless you all. I wish you the best, and also want to thank God for my opportunity that was given to me to serve. So thank y'all, and good luck to you this year. I hope you have a great and wonderful year, and I'll sit down and let you get on with your meeting. You've heard enough from me. So
I would say it's a well-deserved award, and, you have done a remarkable job, and thank you for sharing him with us. I know that probably wasn't always easy, especially over the last 2 years. But can we get a photo with Senator Massey and you and Ms. Thomas and the board?
yeah, okay. Okay. Where do you want us?
We're going to do it right here, kind of in the middle of the table. Everybody in there?
Dr. Rice, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to add as well, just to acknowledge Mr. Thomas and just, he mentioned the team and all the work we're able to do together. And, he's been a great example of humility and integrity for a long time. I'm thinking about 49 years, and next month I turn 49. So I'm just thinking about what that commitment is. So again, has been a great example and mentor to all of us, and really appreciate him. So, moving through, so we'll just kind of go through some of these items. So excited tonight you'll get to hear from Dr. Adams and his update on facilities. I know as we get ready to start the new year, especially going to highlight Lonsdale, that we'll have a ribbon cutting. I'll mention some of that in a minute. Adrian Burnett and the Northwest Sector Elementary School, kind of where we are with those. So we'll have that update. We'll be doing that update as well for County Commission in August. They've asked for that as well, so we'll have that. Speaking of Lonsdale, just want to make sure everybody knows that it will now be one school that is a pre-K through 5th grade. And we've had Lonsdale and Sammy Hill. They're going to be combined into one school. And we really appreciate the board's support on that. I know the community's excited about that, and a lot of work's gone into that. Both mayors, both the county and city mayor, have been supportive of that as well, and will be participating, moving forward with that. We're excited to see the students there again. I think it's long deserved for that community, and glad to see that that's going to happen. So Monday, August the 1st at 10 a.m. will be that ribbon cutting. I think we've got that information out for you all, and I believe there'll be tours then as well, so we'll have that. Also want to speak to the new teacher academy. We had the first one of those today. I was able to go out with Dr. Wilson and a lot of our staff and address the elementary teachers there at Farragut. A great bunch. Our HR team has done a really good job of hiring in. We're kind of tracking those numbers, and right now we're ahead of where we were last year as far as fewer vacancies at this time than we had at this point last year. So they've done a great job, but just the quality of folks that we saw and got to meet there, very excited about that, really stressing just the relationship with students and relationships with the community, and just glad they're there. We thank them because we know, especially in this time of teacher shortages, people could take their talents and gifts lots of places, and they're choosing to be in Knox County, which we think is the best, and we are very grateful for them to be there. Tomorrow we get to go do the same for the secondary folks at Bearden Middle School, so we'll be doing the same there, and excited about that. And then last thing I'll say is, I know we've talked a lot about the 865 Academy work. Tomorrow and Friday there will be training for the freshman academies that will launch this year. Those full teams will be in meeting, and Ms. Jackson will be leading that training for us. So with that concludes my comments.
Thank you. And Mr. Bolton, I believe you have a update presentation for us.
Going to talk to you a little bit about the Tennessee Educators of Color Alliance, TECA. And one of the things I want to focus on and talk about is draw us back to what the work is about, and talking about that our priority when we're looking at, and this is the superintendent's priorities and some of the belief statements that we're doing and that we can all buy into, but we believe that all students should be instructed by great teachers. I think that is the critical. And we also believe that students should be staffed with diverse educators that mirror the demographics of the student population, that great teachers deserve to be celebrated, that teachers should be compensated well for their professional service, and that all teachers should have access to high-quality support and the resources that they need. And all teachers and leaders should have access to strong professional development, credentialing opportunities, and leadership for growth. And then all schools should be led by great leaders. And I say that because that needs to be the work that drives us. And with that being said, I want to talk to you about what the TECA Fellowship is. TECA was actually an initiative that was funded and really facilitated by Knox Ed Foundation. There was limited touch points in the district when we're talking about that in terms of selecting the participants of the fellowship. That selection was determined by TECA. We provided a level of support in terms of identifying the folks that were educators of color and making them aware of that opportunity for the TECA Fellowship. And each year, that original application was set in March of each year, and it closed in April. And then the selection was made by the TECA folks in terms of who was selected for those for that fellowship. The future of the TECA Fellowship, I think, and I put this up here because, as you all know, hopefully soon you all will get an announcement for who is going to be the Executive Director of Talent Acquisition. And initiatives such as this is where those kind of initiatives would live. So I say that to say this. I don't want to speak for our future person in that position in terms of what the future of the TECA Fellowship is. I think that's something for those folks to make that determination. So what is the total cost for 15 fellows? Was about $90,000. 100% of that was paid by KEF in year one. In year two, there was a budget allocated amount of $30,000 for the second cohort, which was in this budget cycle. What did the folks in the group, what did they experience? They had alternating Saturday sessions and weekday evening sessions. It amounted to about one session per month. They did book studies of books that they chose. They were matched to mentors and that in terms of their professional and personal interest. Each of those folks were given a $1,200 stipend for that additional connection and professional development. And I want to pause to say this. The time that they experience doing this professional development cannot count towards their professional development requirements because they were compensated for them. And that's something I just want to draw your attention to. You know, each teacher has to do professional development opportunities. And if you're being compensated for those professional development opportunities, you can't count that towards your requirements for your contract time, if that makes sense. So these folks were compensated by the TECA at that stipend amount of $1,200. And then the facilitator had office hours for additional support as far as one-on-ones and talking to those people. This list of folks, a great list of folks, were our 21, 22 TECA fellows. There were 12 in this inaugural class. And you'll see that a good mix of schools across the district that's represented in that list of schools. The vision of TECA is that it's a year-long experience designed to inform and empower local professionals. And it provides those skills for the purpose of networking, opportunities for growth, experience, community, so that other teachers of color through 6 months hands-on curriculum and 4 additional months of independent guided study. We talk about those with the book studies. This is the curriculum that they, in the 6 sessions that they had, this would be the concepts that they covered. I can't speak to what was in the sessions. Wasn't in the session. It was something that TECA and the cohort members spoke about. Now I'm going to close with these are the TECA fellows for this year, and you'll see that the numbers have increased. I think we've got rounds out at 14 for this year. Again, you'll see a good wide range of different schools that are selected here and represented. So that kind of concludes my report regarding the TECA and the TECA fellows, and I'll be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Ms. Babb?
Yes, so I guess, obviously we want a diverse workforce. Is the goal of this to retain, to the fact that we're recognizing them and we're feeding into them and that we want to retain them in the schools? Is that the ultimate goal on this, that they want to become, life, employees for us? And I guess I saw the vision, but I really don't know what the end goal is for this.
That would be the end goal
Okay.
initially. And I think is getting that buy-in from the folks, getting that connection with that. I think the initial purpose of looking at this was for the purpose of the retention of our educators of color and providing that level of support. And go ahead. Yeah,
and so after 1 year of this, did we get feedback from them that I'm hoping they felt like it was a positive experience and worth their while to participate. And what was the feedback we've gotten from them?
As far as feedback, we did not get feedback directly. So the feedback came through the cohort, and we have not had conversations with TECA regarding the conclusion of cohort 1 or cohort 2. And as that one cohort closed to the other closed, we're again, this is going to reside in a different area, so we've not engaged in those conversations, and that's why we've left it open-ended, for the person that comes into that position as to whether this will be continued in the future.
Just one more comment. I guess, I think it's great, and obviously we want to retain our best teachers and stuff, but I think it would be great if we can learn from them, this was great, or this was great, continue, so I think it would be whoever is continuing with this to get feedback from the people that have already gone through it to just even make it better as we're going forward, which is obviously what we're wanting is to keep these people in our system, and hopefully get them to bring their friends into our system too.
That's right. And I will say this, I spoke to a number of those folks just to, if I was going to speak about it, I wanted to kind of talk to a few before I spoke about it. They really enjoyed the program, felt like they took a lot from it. But as far as a formalized report, then I would probably defer to TECA on that.
Ms. Himmelgarn?
Yes, I'll add to that just a little bit, Madam Chair, members of the board. Our Executive Director of Talent Acquisition, we anticipate announcing this week. So this is something that the Executive Director of Talent Acquisition it will live with them, but that is also one of the priorities that will be evaluating the program, positives of the program, how we can use that information to benefit our employees, but also to increase retention and ensure retention of our high-quality educators.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had similar questions just about the follow-up, and it sounds like we're going to get those as we have a new Director of Talent Acquisition. The one question I have actually doesn't have to do with this exact presentation. When the agenda came out and it said Tennessee Educators of Color Alliance TECA report, I assumed it was going to be a different report. So there was Nathan Langlois did some work with TECA last year to basically do an audit of the perspectives of our teachers of color and others across the district. And I know KEF funded that as well. My assumption was that was going to be the report that we got tonight. I know he gave that presentation to the Alliance for Educational Equity Steering Committee a few months back. And I would like for at some point the board to have access to that information. I know it was funded by KEF, and I don't know if they have some kind of embargo on that or not. But I would love to see the board have access to that information, because I think it's important as we're thinking about this particular priority of creating a more diverse workforce, understanding what the current perspectives are of our educators of color in our district, I think is important. And that was, I know, work that we initiated, although we didn't fund. So.
Yeah, and I actually had a conversation with Dr. Roswick about this earlier this week, and I think he can speak to that and how this came about.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Watson. So I think you're right. The Knox Ed Foundation did that report, and we have talked. Obviously, they're going through some leadership changes as well. So we talked to Mr. Askew and also to some other members of the team who weren't able to be here tonight. And I think we didn't feel comfortable. I'll be honest with you. I'm not positive how public that report is, and so. But we'd be happy to follow up with them and either have them come and speak to that or share that with the board if need be. So, but yeah, without we did have a conversation with them. But they just weren't able to come to be part of that tonight. So,
thank you. I'm not upset at the report that we got. I'm glad we got this too. I'm hoping that at some point we're able to get that, and certainly understand the leadership transitions there and things like that. But just wanted to put a pin in it and see what we can do to make that available at some point to the board. So.
And I believe that was what prevented that other piece from being here. So we can do a follow-up on that. All right, so any more discussion, questions? Okay, so moving on. We also added the discussion of the class membership to this agenda. This is something that I had asked to have added just because the last time, I don't know, board members, if you recall, when we discussed it, it was at the end of the year, and the timing of it ended up being where it wasn't really beneficial for us to debate whether we wanted to participate that year or not, and we had had the discussion that is probably better addressed this time of year. And I don't know, Gary, do you have anything you want to add to that as far as the timing of it?
Yes, be happy to. So yes, the timing discussion was about, and when I looked at the board agenda and the basic agreement, it talks about an agreement from January to December 31st to calendar year. But then if you look at the bylaws of class, and I do recall, I think we talked about that last time as well when this came up, that if this board did want to make a change from class, that would need to be done by November 1st of the given year to avoid fees for the following year. So that's what that was about.
Yeah, thank you. So that was the purpose of adding it to this quarterly workshop, and it's certainly not something that we have to decide this month or even next month. But I do think it's something that we need to be thinking about it so that we're not caught off guard like we were when that discussion came up the last time. So, Ms. Owen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to ask Ms. Horn to help me with my memory on this. When we had our meeting with class back in the spring, we also had a discussion about this with all of the class members who were there. And the general consensus seemed to be that we felt that it was a little bit unfair to be talking about whether to retain someone when we had not given them any job expectations. And we talked about coming back to our individual boards and discussing those expectations with our boards. And I was thinking that we had at some point also discussed doing that maybe at our September work session, our lengthy work session, so that as an individual board as well as a member of class, we could set out those expectations for them so that they know exactly what we want. Because they've had some very conflicting expectations in the past. One example would be they used to give us a very lengthy report of bills that did not pass. And some folks said, why are we hearing about bills that didn't pass? We don't want to know about that. Well, then recently, people said, why don't they ever tell us about bills that don't pass? So my recollection is that the consensus from that larger group of all of us who are class members was that we felt that we needed to get together and create some very clear expectations and communicate those with our class partners. Is that, will you help if I left things out?
I think I think that sounds like a pretty accurate description, and I think that was the consensus from us as well as the others. And I think I think that we need to, as a board, decide what we expect so that we can communicate that to the other members. Because the difficult thing is that this is the kind of thing that nobody really wants to jump in and take ownership of. And so I think we definitely we may need to lead the way on that, but I think we certainly need to figure out as a board what we expect for them, the timing that we want them to report, and what we want that to include. Because in the past, I think we've just, and that's what the other boards expressed also, we've just let them come to us and tell us whatever they want to, but we haven't given them any direction on what we feel like we need.
They take a lot of direction in our Friday meetings, and whatever we have in our agenda, whatever we have said are our legislative priorities, they take a lot of direction from that. So if our priorities and the priorities of the other boards have a place where they don't match up, then they don't mess with that. They don't represent us on that. The places where we are all having consensus is where they represent us. So that's a large place where they get that. Then, of course, sometimes things come up that we don't have an opportunity to discuss before they have to say anything. And so in those instances, they generally call our staff to see if there's a way that they feel about, is this a concern for us? They still can't go in and say, our boards don't want this. But they can find out what are the concerns, and they can take those concerns to legislators. So that's one way that they do that. Part of the problem with no one taking the lead, I think, is because as time has passed since that organization was formed, we have sort of forgotten that the lead passes from district to district. And so that has become a bit of a passive thing also. So I don't know, maybe as a group, we need to make that clearer and ask whoever has the lead at the time to maybe reach out a little more.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true, and I think that's kind of the consensus of the meeting. It was more on the boards, that the boards really felt kind of an ownership on, that we're the ones who are not doing a very good job of whoever's turn it is actually leading, because I don't think we've done a good job when it was our turn, and I think that's probably the consensus for everybody in the room.
I think so.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was also at that meeting, whenever it was, March or whenever that was. The one thing that I remember in addition to that is we were going to go back to our own boards, but then be prepared to have a joint conversation when we gather again at TSBA's conference in the fall. So that way each board can go off and do their own work and then come back together and try to build consensus, I think was the important the important piece of that. And I know one of the other things that led to that conversation is we had some conversation about whether or not class is the right representative. And I'm not trying to open up that can of worms again, but we did have that conversation back in the spring. And you all correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection of that is it seemed like that group as a whole felt good about class, but that we need to better structure the relationship and have some more formality and expectations like you were saying. But class left the room and we met for another, I don't know how long it was, 35, 45 minutes. And through that conversation, I didn't get a sense that the group as a whole felt like we need to look somewhere else. It was more about redefining that relationship and those expectations. And so I think we need to probably honor that, but I think we also need to probably remind, I don't know how we do that, but we need to probably send out notification to all the other boards that are in class to say, hey, don't forget, we want to come to TSBA prepared, and just kind of give a little nudge in case other boards aren't having this meeting, like we are having a discussion about that, so we can have a really robust conversation at that. So
I can do that if that's acceptable to the board.
I think that makes sense since you're on those class calls. I mean, I'm not trying to speak for all of us, but most of us don't speak to the other boards on a regular basis, but you do with this class call. So to me, it makes sense to remind everybody of what we talked about and to what he said.
I'd also just make a little technical correction. Class is technically the group of all of us, of the boards, and the folks we have representing us are Millsaps Gowan.
Yeah.
So they are part of us when we are a whole, but Millsaps Gowan is the representative we're talking about.
Did you have something else?
Sure. And I'm trying to remember, was it the three of us and Susan? Are we the Nashville group? Did anybody else take part in that? I'm thinking it was the four of us. But one thing, I do think the discussion we had was a very good discussion, even amongst our board before we had that, because I do think we've been way too passive. I mean, we haven't asked for anything. I think that discussion made us realize we're sort of at fault. But what it made me do was really reach out to our legislators and ask them, and I'm really bringing this up because I will not be part of the September discussions that go on about this, so kind of want to put my 2 cents in about it, is pretty much every legislator I spoke to said they would not have any knowledge about some of the issues they have if it was not for our representation over there. And we all know that there are a lot of lobbyists on the other side of it. But really, most of them, totally knew who was representing us. They knew why they were representing them. They felt like they got a lot of knowledge. And so I feel like from that standpoint, they're doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. I think, once again, as we kind of keep all saying, we've sort of been lax about it. And I did have a question. I sort of noticed this year, and I know I ended up getting on the emails, on the Friday emails and stuff with them. Has everybody been getting those, or just Jennifer and I?
I added you to the list. Well, we can't all be on there because it would be deliberative.
Well, no, but I'm wondering, can it be, because I have to say, with me being on it, I felt way more informed. Not to have it as a discussion, but is there anything wrong with everybody receiving it from them, just each board member, that information that they sent out? Because I think that makes you realize it kept me way more informed than I was in the past.
I think,
and I feel like with our board not getting it, they feel like there's this group out there they don't ever hear from until they come and give us this report, whereas you and I were getting Friday information from them all the time, and then you're even on calls that I'm not on.
well, the Friday information is also the link to the call, so
Okay.
we would have to be very careful about not having two of us. When I asked to add you to the call, I asked Robert to make sure that we were never both on the call.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that might be just a suggestion of an ask of there needs to be an additional email, one to y'all and another just informational. But I think the fact if all the board members got the kind of legislative information they're sending out, maybe it's even a recap on Monday after they've talked to you. I don't know how, but I think that's a little bit of the miss is, because I did feel much more informed by them this year because I was getting those emails. And so I think that's a discussion we need to have. But I don't know how to go about doing it. You know, I obviously don't want us to get in any trouble on communicating or anything like that.
I can pull out the piece that has the invitation to the call and just send the rest.
Okay. Something like that. I think that would help, and I think it makes you realize what they're doing. I think the problem is, and once again, I'm not disagreeing with some people that said, I mean, when they come and speak to us, it is a little boring and dry. I mean, I think maybe we could direct them a little bit more on, maybe it needs to be more conversational or something, more of a workshop than it's just kind of data they give us or, something like that. But once again, I think that's on us, and I think that's a discussion for this board to have, and then to have it further with the other class members and stuff. But I personally think they add value, and I did like hearing when I asked the legislators that I asked that they found value in them.
Ms. Owen, do you know who the, who currently has the lead or what that?
I think it's national.
Okay. And then it just rotates each year, is that correct?
Terry, is it every year or every other year?
It's every 4 years, and my understanding about that switching districts is that that's mostly the administrative work. So every 4 years, I take over all the administration, make sure the checks get paid and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, like, when it first started, I think that was the intent, that whoever the district was with the administrative duties for that year, that board chair would kind of take the lead with all the other boards and make sure those communications went out. And nobody on this current board was with that board, and so, in that absence of that piece kind of transferring over, it just kind of, stopped happening.
And I would add to that there was a different group representing class then, and I think that may have happened in that transition.
Mr. McMillan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a comment and then a question, I guess. Sounds like the people over there are all in favor of keeping or maintaining the relationship with class, because you were talking about, Mr. Dupler said we need to decide by November, and I think Mr. Watson mentioned the board meeting in November. But is this something that we should discuss and deal with it maybe in August before, as far as a yay or nay, before the new people come on? I'm just throwing it out there to. I don't know how much knowledge they would have, and so forth. I personally haven't seen a whole lot out of them. It's like Ms. Babb said, it's been pretty dry, and I think maybe from what I've seen and heard, they maybe cater more toward a couple of the systems that are larger than we are and west of us. Thank you.
Ms. Bounds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Coakley, did I hear you say that it rotates every 4 years, or that was the original plan, was like one system would do it for 4 years and then it would rotate?
Thank you, Ms. Bounds. Yes, so when class first started, it was actually 5 districts, because Memphis City Schools and Shelby were 2 systems, and so it would actually rotate every 5 years. But then when it went to the 4 districts and Shelby combined, it comes every 4 years. And so I believe our next year to run the administrative side of it is 2024.
Okay, thank you.
I think I can add to that just by looking at the bylaws. So this year, 22-23, the chair would be Hamilton County, vice chair would be Knox. Next year, chair would be Knox, vice chair would be Shelby.
Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just wanted to add that, one question first. Did we talk about, when we met in February, about Rutherford County? Did that come up? I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but does anybody?
I don't think we decided. I think the feeling at the time that we got feedback from was that they were not that interested.
Okay.
I couldn't remember what happened.
Okay. I know one of their board members had said to me they were they were curious about talking to other large districts, but it wasn't necessarily relative to class. But
Right, and we had some discussion about that, and I think what we vaguely discussed was maybe just having that meeting separate from class and just making it informal.
I think we did.
And asking TSBA to help us with that.
I believe you're right.
I think if we can stick to the timeline from our last class meeting and locally set our expectations, and then as a class group set larger expectations in November, that would be very helpful. Ms. Bounds, were you thinking maybe it should switch more often than every 4 years? I wonder if we should look at making a change to those bylaws.
That's kind of where I was going on that. I don't know. I think we've been kind of unaware of maybe the responsibilities, and it's easy to do when boards change, and our board changes quite often, and that information sometimes is not historically.
Right. And I'll tell everybody, I went back and just started reading the minutes from that time period so I could understand what was going on, or at least try to. And it looked to me from all the documentation that I pulled that sort of became lost when they changed who was running it, because not that it was set out in the bylaws, but I think what was happening was that it was the representatives who were running it instead of the boards. And I think that's why they changed that. I can't really tell, but that's the impression I got. So I think all of that kind of rolled in there and caused that. But I think I saw where you were going with that, because it seems that if it rotated more often, we would be both more aware of it, and if someone dropped the ball, someone would pick it up more quickly. And to Mr. McMillan, I will tell you that they don't cater just to one district or another. If all four of us don't agree, they don't carry that. They don't go to our legislators and say, this is what they want. There are some lobbyists who are in Nashville and who are in Memphis. Their lobbyists do that. Each of their lobbyists work specifically for their school district. But our lobbyists for class, they are very careful to ask us on those calls and make sure that they have an understanding of exactly where we're coming from. Because if we don't all four agree on it, they can't say that we all four agree on it. So they're real careful about that.
So do you have any idea of how many things that in the past years that we have agreed on? I mean, just a number since
I
you've
can't
been
give you a number, but if we laid out each of our legislative priorities side by side, which is one of the things that they do, and looked at those, I'm sure we see many that we agree on. I can say that from the calls I've been on, all four districts were very concerned about funding for school nurse positions, for social workers. They were very concerned about teacher retention. All four districts were very concerned about funding for security initiatives.
Well, you're just naming things that are common sense that would be whether it was a large district or not so large. I think they would all be concerned about that.
I agree, but the things I named were things that we specifically discussed on the calls that our lobbyists specifically went to our legislators to advocate for. And I can go back and look at my notes and pull some very specifics if you like, if you want it more than that.
That's okay. I just wondered how many things, as far as did we agree on, 24 things or.
And then of course there are many things that they can't work on because we don't have a position on it. So if we haven't taken a position and if none of us have a position on it, then they can't look at that really. So that's tricky. Like the funding formula, none of us had a position on the funding formula. So they could look at things that we had taken positions on that were part of the funding formula, but they couldn't take a position that we liked or didn't like having a new funding formula, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Mr. Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be clear, Mr. Dupler, it sounds like the chairmanship of it rotates every year. Is that what you were saying? And then but is it also then that, Terry, the administrative part is every 4 years? Are we talking about two different things?
No, it's every year.
It sounds to me like, and from the discussion, the discussion this board had last time, like Ms. Owens talking about, and this time, sounds to me like that each board in this association has now a class representative on the board, and it seems like that's what's happening, and then those class representatives are getting together, and then maybe they're not rotating but every 4 years. Mm-hmm. But if you go back to the bylaws, and if this board wants to take the lead on this and insist upon going back to what the bylaws say, the bylaws say exactly what you're saying, Mr. Watson, is that, you know, the leadership of class should rotate every school year. And it started in 13-14, and for this upcoming school year, 22-23, Hamilton County's the chair and the vice chair's Knox County. So, you know, so whoever the vice chair is in September, then this board could then say, hey, we want our vice chair, you know, to be the vice chair of class, and, you know, and then go from there.
So the bylaws are not specific about who on the board is the vice chair of class at that given point. That's something for each board to decide who that vice chair or chair may be in that position.
I was thinking it said the chair.
That's a good point. I mean, you know, so it talks about the offices of chair and vice chair for class, but then it says, but then when it starts talking about each year, it then lists, like, first up was chair, Davidson County, vice chair, Hamilton County. Mm-hmm. So it's not clear as to whether or not they're saying, okay, so the actual chair of the board of Davidson County,
right.
but that's certainly what one could apply there.
Yeah, both interpretations could be accurate. Yeah. Okay, but we don't know what's happened in practice necessarily, probably.
Well, and I mean, I think Ms. Owen has been explaining. It sounds like maybe the chair and the vice chair of each board hasn't gotten involved so much as just a representative. But
yeah.
I don't, the representatives don't rotate. That's separate. That's just the person who's on that Friday call. So the chair and vice chair part, my understanding is that it is the board chair from each one that should rotate to. I think that's in documentation somewhere, so I'll go dig that out. But yeah, as the representative to class, none of those people have like chair or vice chair kind of duties. They're just there to say, yes, this is what we've agreed, and, you know, take that back and forth.
So it'd be helpful if we could get some clarification on that at least before we move in, Ms. Babb.
I would say it might even be good in November for us to just all hash it out and say what we want and vote.
Right. Well, and it's kind of sounding like maybe we need to maybe it needs to be a discussion on the yearly workshop where we can set some more time aside, and maybe everybody can come with some specific ideas of, you know, the way they would like to see communication shared, and that might be where one of the disconnects is, because if you are not on those calls or emails, you might not, I mean, and if you miss, you know, you can't go to TSBA for some reason, then maybe you are seeing them once a year here, right? And then the next thing you know, you're voting on a contract form. So maybe if we can figure out a way to at least update or share communications. But it does sound like we need a longer discussion, maybe at would everyone agree? Well, I don't guess I can ask that, can I, Gary? Sorry. Ms. Horn, did you have something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that I think the big thing that we need to remember is that there are very few people advocating for public education in Nashville. There's TSBA, there's class, Is it the Memphis?
Shelby County.
Shelby County has their own personal, and that's it, right? Is there one more? There's one more.
We also have TEA and TOS.
TEA and TOS. So, I mean, that's really very few people. So I think that's the big picture that we need to keep in mind, is that any kind of advocate, and anybody advocating for public education is going to be positive for us. So I think that's just really important to note.
Ms. Babb?
Yeah, I think I would agree with going, and this kind of responds to Mr. McMillan, of having this discussion, a longer discussion at the board workshop. But I do go back to the fact of, and once again, it's like we're a 9-person board, and there are like 4 of us that went to this Nashville and had this very robust discussion about them. And pretty much there was agreement among all the areas that we have not been going. It's on us. We have got to tell our lobbyists what to do. They can't just guess what we expect of them. And so that's what we have got to do as a group at our workshop. We've got to decide what our expectations are for them. Because what happens is, like Mr. McMillan, like you've only heard them at the one meeting here. Yeah, it's boring as can be. I'll agree with you. I mean, but, also I've gone to Nashville. I've heard them. I didn't go to TSBA this last year, so I didn't hear them there. But then that helped me when I got the Friday emails. So I heard more of that. So I do think we've got to figure out whether it's McGowan, Millsaps, or it's another group. I really do think it would be a problem for us not to have some kind of lobbyist on our part. I mean, I think that would be a big mistake. Whether it's them or not, I think it's up to us to set the expectations of what we expect from them, give them a year to try to live up to those expectations, and then we have something to judge it from. But right now we're going, oh, you gave a boring report once a year and we think they're doing a bad job. I don't think that's a fair assessment of them. So that would be my hope for us. Once again, this is not, by the time the workshop comes, I won't be there. But this is my opinion, that I would like us to set expectations, work with the rest of them, set clear expectations on what we expect, so of them or whatever lobbyists that we hire. But I really think, as Susan has said, I think it's very important for us to be represented by somebody over in Nashville. I just don't, I think we're hearing too much where there are these outside parties that come in and they're whining and dining these legislators. We all know what's happening. And, I think we need somebody out there really looking out for us.
So any more discussion? All right, so Ms. Owen, do you think you could get maybe some clarity on that as far as, and Ms. Coatney, if we could add a discussion to our yearly workshop on it, and then everybody can maybe be preparing ahead of time and thinking about ideas of how they would like to see those communications shared, or if they have ideas, whether it is this lobbyist or someone else, and just be prepared to have that discussion so that we can develop a plan before we're faced with this contract again, or before we go to TSBA in November. So. Okay, so if nothing else on that, I believe we have a facilities update. Dr. Adams, is that you? I believe it is. And welcome back to Knox County, by the way. I missed last week. So.
Oh. So I have exciting news to share with everyone today. Before I get started, I would like to acknowledge that my clicker's not working.
Turn on the side. I turned it on.
Good one. So before I jump in, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Schofer, Doug Schofer. I don't know if you all know Doug Schofer. He's our Director of Facilities and Operations. And I will tell you, when I first took the position on July the 1st, which feels like that was last year, he had a board of a list of items that we had to cover. And then I looked at that and I was overwhelmed of, can we get this done in a month's time? And then he said, I'm going on vacation. He left me. So he's here tonight. He said that he would leave when I got to slide 1. So if you see him trying to sneak out, please grab him. Right now where we are, I've got, once again, exciting news. We did get a certificate of occupancy, and that was last Tuesday. It came down to the wire, whether we were going to get that or not, for Lonsdale Elementary, so very excited about that. Doug and I, we talk in timeline now. Because we want to be very transparent with the board, we want to be transparent with the community, we certainly want to be transparent with the principal and the school. And so moving forward, we look at getting the rest of that certificate of occupancy in August or late August or early July. Keep in mind, we're not at capacity, so we're in good shape there. Lonsdale Elementary and Sam E. Hill will move in at the beginning of the school year, so we're set to go. Of course, as soon as they move out, the contractor will start their phase 2 work as far as demolition, abatement, and so forth. Teachers have started to move in. If you know teachers, they'll start moving in when they're not on contract, and we've just got exceptional teachers. I can say that as a former Knox County teacher and as an administrator in Knox County schools, it doesn't surprise me at all that they've jumped the gun and started to move in. So we've started that process. And I'm excited to see everyone at the ribbon cutting on Monday, August 1st. So we're moving right along for Lonsdale Elementary. Agent Burnett, we expect the issuance of I'm gonna just call it a CO. We expect the CO in early September, the start of the school year in the existing building. So we will transition during fall break. We do anticipate some degree of difficulty possibly in the areas of the gym, the cafeteria, and some of the restrooms. What we have done is we've asked the contractors to prioritize the restrooms, and Brett, and she's amazing, and our food service department, what they're looking at doing is getting the food over, getting the food prepared and bringing it over if we have to come to that. But keep in mind, we're looking at getting in the building and transitioning in fall break. I always look for a plan B if I have to, and that will be plan B. So I don't want anyone to be worried about, what if it gets delayed because of flooring? So we're in good shape there. And once again, once we start that process, they'll start demolition and abatement and so forth. The Northwest sector, we look to start in early to mid-June, and we will be open on August the 23rd. So we're excited about that. The discussions of zoning is underway. So I gave you all, I'll show you here in just a second in the next slide, an idea of the areas that will be covering and looking at who will be attending that school. I will say we met with Mayor Jacobs and his team, and they have been very accommodating, very supportive of looking at widening the Coward Mill Road. So excited about the community having that road taken care of and their commitment to the community as well. So these are the areas, once again, you see a circle. You do not see the outline of the zoning because we are not there yet, but these are the areas that we'll be targeting for the new Northwest Sector Elementary School. And I'll just say it out loud for the viewers: Birchfield Heights, Wexford Downs, Greenbrook, Creek Bend Farms, Reagan Landing, Beaver Creek, and Clinch River. And last but not least, the request for approval to purchase of the property is on the school board for the August agenda, so that will be coming up soon. So very excited about the Farragut primary grade solution. Farragut primary grades. It is not a solution yet, but it will be once we break ground. And so we're looking at the KCS Facilities Department is developing a request for qualification, and so it's an RFQ, and that should be issued as early as August 1st. And once again, timelines, we want to be very considerate of the board and to ensure that you all have timelines as well. I know I went through that fairly quickly, but if you all have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Ms. Babb?
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up a zoning issue that I hope really gets considered because I see it a lot in my area. Obviously, I think it'd be great if we all lived in South Knoxville and went to an elementary and then directly to a middle and then a high school. But my area is one of those that's in the middle. And what I can see with this one happening is probably kids getting split up after elementary, going some to Carnes and some to Hardin Valley. What I hope people will look at is when that happens, if they get sent to, say they're at this elementary school and they get sent to Carnes Middle, that they then go on to Carnes High and that they don't go back to Hardin Valley. I have a school, elementary, that is like that. Every year, it's those parents that want the transfer, and I completely understand it. It's you're already making them get away from their friends once. So I really hope that we will think through that middle high school transition and whatever the split is. If they can all stick together and all go to one middle and one high school together, but I'm guessing that's not going to be the case. But I really think once they get to middle school, those middle schoolers need to transition all to the same high school. And I just hope people will keep that in the thoughts.
Absolutely. And we've had those discussions. And so really, and I can tell you, as a principal at a high school and a middle school in rezoning, when we get into those situations, we really look at the grade level, what students get grandfathered in, but then you get in the conversation of siblings. So that's something that we are certainly going to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely taking that in consideration.
You're probably already hearing about that. So does anybody have anything else for Dr. Adams?
Do we have a time on the ribbon cutting for Monday? 10. Oh, sorry.
10 a.m.
I apologize. I didn't put that on the
Okay.
presentation.
All right. So anything else? All right. So thank you, Dr. Adams.
Thank you. I have one comment, Madam Chair Christie.
Yes.
Sweet Peas is no longer in South Knoxville, so
I
you got to
know.
find me a good barbecue place. I'd
Okay.
appreciate that.
Well, we have one. We'll talk after. So.
I've already been to Love's.
Oh, okay.
It's excellent.
There you go. That was going to be my suggestion. Okay. So, Ms. Babb, did you have anything else?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we do not have anyone signed up for public forum. Is that correct, Ms. Coatney? All right. So moving on to board forum. Ms. Owen? Mr. Watson? Ms. Babb? Ms. Horn? Ms. Henderson? Ms. Bounds? Mr. McMillan? All right. Meeting adjourned.